Okay, I know this may sound strange, but I am really excited for today's guest, Kenne-Ann, who has a podcast called Perspectives of Grief. And we have so many parallels. It was incredible to have this discussion with her, and you're really going to get a lot out of it. If you have not subscribed to the podcast on YouTube, please do. Give me a like, give me a comment. That helps me get to my goal of 500 before June. That's my goal. If you're on Apple or Spotify, please leave a rating and leave a comment about the podcast. I would really appreciate it. I am in Ohio.
Oh, okay.
And where are you? Canada, right?
Yes, I'm just about an hour and a half north of Toronto.
Welcome back to another episode of Catch Some SoulShine. And today I am with Kenne-Ann from Canada. And I actually have never met her in person or virtually, but I have been associated with her and I've seen her on other platforms that we're both in. Did you take the podcasting course?
I did as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
So we were both in our podcasting course, and boy, oh boy, I did not think I could put out a podcast, but I learned and I did it. So here we are. I'm
It's,
doing
you know
it.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Yes, it's in
we both
action.
are.
Sorry. Yes, yes.
Yes. So Kenne-Ann is going to be a fabulous guest for the podcast today because she really talks about the grieving process, grief, as I do a lot, because I'm not sure if you're familiar with my story, but I've suffered a significant amount of loss. I know people that are listening probably already know, but my dad passed away in an auto accident the week before my senior year of college. And I lost my son, Bradley, when he was 23 to an accidental overdose. And then a couple years after that, we kind of adopted his sponsor, Brian, he was a lifeline for me. He really helped guide me through the darkness of Brad's passing. And then he died. So at that point, that's when I started really working on all these healing modalities, creativity, meditation. And then a little over a year ago, my grandson died at the babysitter's. So
Oh my goodness.
I've had my fill of grief. And the way life is, I'm sure that people pass and I'm going to experience more of it. But because I've had such a significant amount, I have really implemented some really great tools to help me through the darkness so that I can live an abundant, joyous, happy, free life. And that's what we're supposed to do when we're here. I know so many people, and maybe no fault of their own, but they get trapped in the darkness. I'm not. I'm not trapped in it. Do I visit it sometimes? Yes, because I'm human. As a whole, I'm living my best life, and I just turned 60. So
You
there
turned
you have it.
60? Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
I hope to look half as good as you look at 60 and have as much joyful energy as you have at
Yeah,
60. You look
yeah.
amazing. And
Well, thank you.
not just the superficial looks. I mean just you radiate. If anybody could, I know the listeners, if you could see Dawn, you just radiate joy. You just have this
Thank you.
of joy.
Yeah, I really think that's our purpose here, is to live that kind of life. Now, when people do experience grief, the one problem or misconception that people have is that you can skirt around it, and you can't. You have to go through it. There's no way around it. And people that I've seen try to skirt around it or take a shortcut end up prolonging that process.
Exactly. What popped into my head as you said that is like when we call a company and we're on hold, and we're holding, and then we get tired holding, so we hang up, and then we call again, and we've just doubled our time because we hung up. So hanging up is the version of trying to skirt around the grief. It's still there. It's not going anywhere. So instead of dialing that number, as it were, and being on hold for 10 minutes and 15 minutes and getting tired and hanging up, and calling again and then doubling that time, now I have to wait another 10, 15 plus minutes. I could have just stuck it out that first time and got attended to by a customer service agent, as an example. And the same thing with grief is when we try to skirt around it thinking we're avoiding it or we're going to ease it, it's going to be easier. No, it's still there in all of its rawness, if that's a word. You put it beautifully. The only way, that we have to go through it, the only way out is through.
I have never heard that analogy before, and it is absolutely perfect with the
Oh, you mean with the
telephone.
phone? That just popped
Yeah,
into my head as you were talking. That's what popped into my head.
it's
Yeah, I heard a beautiful, actually, actually Long Island medium. I love to see her clips. I find it so comforting how, people grieving. But she said something to somebody in a little clip I saw today. She said, "You will grieve for the rest, like you will grieve your loved one for the rest of your life. At the same time, healing needs to happen." I think that's often what we could get mistaken with. Basically, if we heal, it means we're not grieving anymore. That is not true. We'll always grieve. I don't want to say but, so I'm thinking of another word, and in spite of that, we have to heal because, like you said, Dawn, we still have to live, and the world needs us to live to our fullest. Our loved ones need us to live to our fullest because
right.
it gives them no peace to know that we are not living to our joyful, authentic self in spite of grieving them.
I love that. I heard an analogy once when the grief is brand new. It's like you're in a room and there's a big black round circle disc
Mhm,
right in front of your face, and that's all you can see.
mhm,
As time passes and you work through those emotions and you know, kind of accept it, the
mhm.
big black ball moves a little bit away from you. It's still in the room with you, but it's moving. Sometimes it'll be right in front of your face again, but
Yeah.
other times it's, floating around and it's there, but you don't really see it. And then as time passes,
Mhm.
more things come in the room with you, loved ones, activities, things that you do, and you don't even notice the big black. It doesn't change in size, but it moves further away and it gets mixed in with all these other wonderful things. But every once in a while, it'll come and
Right.
get right in front of you again. But with me, I swipe it away when it comes in front of me. I don't stay there. I'll still have those emotions. And I guess sometimes it lingers a little bit longer. But for the most part, I'm reaching for the other things that are in my circle, my bubble, the things that light me up and bring me joy.
Yes. Yeah. And
How
and it's
did you get into this topic of grief? I mean, did you have an experience?
I only laugh because yes, I did have an experience to answer your question. And at the same time, I laugh when you ask that because the reason I got into talking about grief on my podcast, which certainly is not a laughable topic by any means. But remember in the group when everybody's like, I am a lawyer, so my podcast is going to be about this and this and this. And I've been a coach for 20 years, and my podcast is going to be this and this and this. I'm thinking, Kenne-Ann, what the heck are you? I didn't go to college. I didn't go to university. I've worked since I was 80. But who is like, what do you have to talk about to the world? So that really, it was, when I thought about it, I thought, you know what? Grief is what I've lived since I was 14 years old. My dad got diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. And it was back in the day when cancer was called the big C. People were
Yes.
not even, it was almost like a shame on a family because your loved one had cancer. It was,
Mhm.
it was, and I mean, it sounds even ridiculous now. Saying that out loud, it sounds ridiculous that there was ever a stigma to cancer.
Mhm.
And and then when I thought, because I thought, because we were told everybody has something that the world needs. Everybody has a story to share. Everybody has something to share in a podcast. And I guess where it was like taking the layers off, you know, and a bit of feeling inadequate because a lot of the group, everything, a lot of people were talking from qualifications and degrees and everything. And I thought, oh my gosh, I I don't have any of those things. But it was almost as if I was not supposed to, because grief is my story,
Right.
if that makes any sense. And as a 14-year-old losing my dad, I I can honestly tell you, I didn't really understand. And, I still get wound up. He's passed away 36 years ago. I was 14, he was 53. And I tell you, I launched my podcast on December 4th, which he passed away on December 4th. So that was the significance and the beauty of that day in memory of him. The thing is, with grief, nobody ever talked to me about grief. My mom was widowed at 43. My parents were 10 years apart. And I remember when I turned 43, I could still in my head say I pulled over. I was on my way home from work. It was my birthday. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, my mother at 43, this is the age that daddy passed away. I had to pull over and I typed on my phone. I think it was an email or WhatsApp message. I don't remember. But it was basically, I was in awe of my mother. When I thought, when I turned 43, I did not see myself as capable to be widowed, have two children, 10 years old and 14 years old. And my dad had been ill at home for at least 2 years before then.
Mhm.
So, and she worked the whole time. There was no mental health leave and taking time off to look after your husband. No, no. I just remembered being in awe of my mother. I'm in awe of my mother regardless, but just, when you realize, oh my gosh, at this age, I'm driving home happily, home from work. And at this age, my mother was burying her husband.
I have to tell you,
Mm-hmm.
it's the synchronicities and the parallels to what you were saying with me are, I mean, you can't make it up. Okay. So I started my podcast. My first podcast release was October 21st, which is Brad's angelversary, my son.
My gosh.
And that's why I started it on that day. My mother became a widow 2 days before her 40th birthday.
My gosh.
Yeah.
I'm so,
And
yeah.
so my brother was, I was at college. It was a week before my last year of college. It was such a big deal for me to go to college because nobody in our family had gone to college. My dad didn't, my mom didn't.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was so proud of me going to college. And I remember thinking, he's never going to see me graduate. But then at the graduation day, I just felt like he was there. I thought, honestly, that that was the worst pain that I could ever experience. But I ended up drinking and partying and skirting around the grief. That's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I did. I didn't really fully deal with it. My mom was here with my brother, and I came home to help when I could, but not a lot because I had my own life and I wasn't fully present for that. But when Brad died, honestly, um, the beginning of that journey, I felt like I wanted to die too.
Yeah.
I really did. And I have, these other beautiful children and, my husband, he was grieving too. It was just a really tough time. It propelled me to seek out all these tools that
Mm-hmm.
I may have known about, but I wasn't using. Meditation. I meditate all the time now. Journaling. I'm really journaling a lot right now. And I have to say that's because I'm doing the Write It Real experiment with Jessica Hughes, who is fabulous. In fact, I think I will drop that link in the show notes for anybody that wants to do that. It's life changing. And then I started doing art, creativity. And then I started researching about, because, I like to read, I like to research, researching about how creativity creates these new pathways and increases the brain neuroplasticity and makes it healthier and helps with everything, not just grief, everything. I mean, the podcast, this is a creative endeavor.
Yes.
People say, I'm not an artist, but creativity has so many different meanings, writing, speaking on a podcast, dancing, music, acting, so many things. My husband started knitting.
Wow.
He's always been a creative though. He likes acting and writing and all kinds of things. I find the more I talk to people, the people that seem the healthiest, happiest, heal the quickest, add some type of creative outlet to their lives.
Part of it is because we are meant to create. We
Yes.
were put here, and we tend to think of being creative, like you say, with a paintbrush and an easel, and oh, I don't know how to draw. Okay, you know
Mhm.
what? I don't know how to draw. I one of the, I often say I love to hear singing. I love to hear singing, and that is one
Mhm.
thing that I say, you know what, God, because people who could sing well make it look so easy.
Yeah.
And I remember one day there was this young girl, she's probably grown now. Oh my gosh, Jackie Ivanko. She won or came second in America's Got Talent or one of those shows. She was 10 years old. Anyway, my husband, you'd think she was his daughter from, another life. He just absolutely loved her. So we had all of her CDs, and one day I'm driving home, driving somewhere, and her music, is blaring. And for anybody who doesn't know her, she sings very like, oh, soprano or something like that, whatever. And I say to myself, oh my gosh, but I'm singing just like she's singing. So I lower the volume to him, and then I'm like, no, 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 it's not me, it's who? It's Anyway, I totally digress there. Um, because creativity, we all are meant to be creative. And but like you said, Don, like there's so many ways of creativity.
Yes.
It's not necessarily painting or drawing or building, but you think of somebody putting flowers in a vase, for
Hmm.
example, and you think of somebody putting pictures up on a wall in a house, in your home, and you walk in, it's like, oh my gosh, this picture looks so gorgeous in this room, but it would not look as gorgeous in another room, or even decorating, like home decorating, the way they put their furniture and the way they have the cushions, and all of that is creativity,
Hmm.
and even just, I remember we have friends, a husband and wife, and they've had us over for dinner. And honestly, I feel horrible to say this. Anytime it's more or less like our turn, not that it's, like would like to treat them to dinner. They've come to our home, but I will not have her over for dinner. The reason is because when we go for dinner by them, she has the cloth napkins and the napkin rings and the this plate inside of the other. I'm sorry, I can't set a table looking like that with what I have. You know what I mean? It's intimidating, but it's beautiful. So we love to go for dinner by them. I can't set my table like you. And then I feel as if I'm not offering you what you're giving me, but my whole point is about being creative. Each of us, and the listener out there, to tap into what is your creativity? Because
Hmm.
our creativity is our healing on
Yes.
wherever we need, because it's like that, it's like that patchwork in our heart. It fills us, certainly not that it replaces what we have lost or who we have lost, because we certainly don't only grieve when somebody passes away. I speak about that a lot on the podcast. So, creativity, and I'm so grateful we're having this conversation because I'd never thought of it from this perspective. Playfulness, creativity, healing the inner child with play. And
Hmm.
play could be putting on your favorite music and dancing in the middle of the day. It could be hula hooping. It could be whatever you want it to be. Play. And I think when we grow up, in those air commas, that we forget to play. And play is that creativity. As a child, making mud pies and, fought with it, taking off the cushions from the couch. And
Right.
all of that is creativity.
Absolutely. And I read a book called Your Brain on Art, and they did extensive research on individuals, and what they found is not only is it people that are doing the creativity, but for example, if they studied people that were looking at art, their brain function improved. Going to an opera, I mean, I've never been, but going to a musical concert, going to a play, just immersing yourself in the arts, creation improves your brain function. And they did studies with accountants and people that have jobs that involve a lot of brain work. And the ones that employed creativity on a regular basis had better productivity.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And those roles are not usually seen as creative.
Yeah.
So to use that part, because I think it's the right side of our brain is creative, and the left side is logical,
Analytical and
analytical.
logical.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's using that balance in the brain, basically.
Uh-huh. So it's all about healing that. And it's magical, really. I'm so grateful that I dived in and discovered the things that light me up
Hmm.
because, like I told you, I'm 60 and I feel like I've got a lot more living to do. 7 years ago, when Brad passed away, I didn't want to anymore.
Yeah.
So isn't that incredible that
Mm.
working through these dark patches that we all have in our lives, you can be happy, joyous, free, no matter what, no matter what your circumstances.
I have a childhood friend and a friend that she went to high school with. So my friend's friends, if that makes sense. Her eldest daughter took her own life a few
Mm,
years ago, I think like in 2021. She was 25 years old, very young. I remember seeing a post that she put, and I guess so many months after the funeral and so on. I think it was her first birthday without her oldest, right? Because she has two other daughters and a husband and so on. Her first birthday of having lost her daughter. Her friends did something for her, had a party, did whatever. And I remember she wrote to her daughter on Facebook and she said, even though I'm smiling and laughing, my heart is still broken.
mhm,
And that has stayed with me. It really is something for us to remember that we do not know the sadness that somebody else is carrying on their heart. Like
yeah.
I'm looking at you, unless you share with me, I have no way of knowing that Brad passed away. I have no way of knowing when your dad died and that impact on you as at that stage in your life, which of course carries right through your life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only through us connecting, like human to human. We can easily get caught up in a world where everything has to be professional and we have to be our ideal self and we have to show up in the world as our best self. Well, what if our best self right now has some little cracks? Has,
Mm-hmm.
hairline cracks, has some major cracks, has some little chips, pieces missing? What if that is my best right now?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. And I'm very, very, very strong on saying, suggesting, and encouraging always need to choose kindness. I am saying this, and I by no means am preaching from a soapbox because I'm human. Somebody gives us a bad drive. What if they just, I always think of my mother, for example. I know I'm bouncing around a little bit. When I've worked with customers and so on and over the years. And I remember thinking once, when you have these nasty people swing at you over the phone because whatever. I say first world problems. That's my thing. Not to diminish, but at the end of the day, do you really need to tear a strip off another human being for something that is probably out of their control? I often remember thinking, what if this was my mum on the phone? She would have terminally ill husband at home, two daughters who didn't know whether they were coming or going. While my dad was terminally ill, my mother never slept at night. When I say never slept, I often say you would walk. We didn't have air conditioning, grew up in Trinidad. We had fans back then. And you would walk between her and the fan, like you would cut that breeze from the fan and she would wake up. That's how lightly she slept. That's what I thought. What if this was my mom on the phone? We don't know what other people are carrying on their hearts. And that's why it's always important to choose to be kind.
I read that book. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's one of my I have a lot of favorite books, but The Four Agreements, which is be impeccable with your word,
Don't take
which
anything
is don't
personally.
take anything
No,
personally,
we're on my
don't
phone.
make any assumptions,
Yes.
and always do your best. Because guess what? There are days when we're not going to be kind. We're going to be thinking other things of people that maybe aren't necessarily true. And we can hit that reset and just try again and always do our best. Release the cords that bind me to others. Even if somebody is having a really bad day and they're nasty and they're not nice to you, if I release those cords that are binding me to that person and just hold space for them, let them be where they are, it doesn't have to affect me. It doesn't have to deplete my energy. It doesn't have to bring me down. I can just be compassionate and separate myself from it. That's a lot easier said than done. I've had a lot of practice. It's his journey. It's not mine. And eventually, hopefully, he will get to that place of peace. Now, do I wish that I could, do I think, I don't know how to word this, but am I happy that I lost my son? No. Am I happy that I lost my grandson? No. Brian, my dad? No. But I can look at that as those were gifts to me. The gift of grief, because it propelled me to a place where I had to do some really deep, meaningful healing. And now it's my purpose to pass that on to other people.
Yes, living from purpose.
We are supposed to be happy. We are, no matter what. And that takes work. I think there's 3 pillars. This is my belief. One is mindset. Okay. So you can't go to the other pillars until your mindset is in a place of abundance and wealth. And I used to go to recovery meetings and they would say, fake it till you make it. And I was like, oh, that's so stupid. It's not stupid. It's absolutely brilliant. That is mindset. And then the second one is action. Okay. We can have the best mindset in the world, but if we're not taking actionable steps to get better, we can't move forward. And then for me, and I know this isn't maybe necessarily for most, but this is the program that works for me, and this is the one that I believe will help other people, is service. What gifts are you giving to the world?
Huge.
Because we all have the ability to give, to serve, to help others.
That is beyond powerful.
Thanks for joining me today on another episode of Catch Some SoulShine. Kenne-Ann and I are not finished. I was blown away by the synchronicities that our stories have. Even though they're different, they're similar. And she is just such an insightful person. Please follow her podcast, and I will have that in the show notes. And look her up on social media, especially if you need someone for some support during your grieving process. I always have freebies, so check out the show notes for a free print, Rooted in Faith. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'll see you next week.